Welcome to the Histories of Northamptonshire podcast series, and this episode number 56. Recorded on location, each episode tells the story of one of the many and varied objects which are the focus of the exhibition A History of Northamptonshire in 100 Objects. The exhibition runs at the Northampton Museum and Art Gallery between the 20th of September 2025 and February 2026. Selected by local individuals, heritage groups and the museum's own curators, each object tells a different story from the county's past. And so, to our guest for this episode.
I'm Gabriella Della Rosa. I'm the curator at Sulgrave Manor.
That's not a Northamptonshire accent.
No, it's not.
Where are you from?
I'm from Los Angeles, California.
North America.
Yes.
That might well come into our conversation at a later point in the podcast, because Sulgrave Manor is forever associated with some extremely important neighbours to this country. We'll get to that in due course. Gabriella, it's lovely to have you on the podcast series. What is the object that we're talking about?
The object is an embroidered picture. It dates to approximately 1650, and it combines a mixture of flat and raised embroidery. It is three-dimensional. You might not immediately notice that, but if you look at it closely, you will see that there is a mixture of flat embroidery and something called raised work.
Just how big an item are we talking about?
It's about the size of a tea tray. It's about 30 centimeters wide. But what's interesting about this object is that it combines both flat and raised embroidery and a painting in the center. That is really unusual.
So it's a highly decorative kind of a frame then?
The embroidery functions like a frame. Yes, it sort of, the embroidery frames the centered painting in the middle.
I've seen the item for myself. It is incredibly detailed. The craftsmanship that has gone into it is quite astonishing, which means that the level of work that would have gone into its creation is also astonishing. Who made this piece?
Well, that's really interesting. The truth is, we don't know for certain. For a very long time, it was attributed to a woman named Phyllis Washington. Now, she's known most famously in Northamptonshire and in the United States for being the great-great-great-grandmother of George Washington. And when it was donated to us in 1923, it was given with a handwritten inscription on the back of the embroidery that said, "This picture was worked by Phyllis Washington, 3 times great-grandmother of George Washington, the first president of the United States." And for the past 100 years, that is how we've treated it, how it's been described and displayed. But the opportunity to look at it more closely over the past year and a half that I've been in post, and thinking about the type of embroidery that it shows, the type of motifs that are being used, and that this type of technique, I took the opportunity to speak to a colleague at the Royal School of Needlework who came in and was able to more accurately date the embroidery. Previously, it had been dated to the late 1660s, but now we know for almost certainly that it's 1650. Now, if you take that date and you match that to the date of Phyllis Washington, who died in around 1650, it quickly becomes apparent that she couldn't have done this work. Primarily because this type of embroidery is almost certainly the work of a young girl. This is the type of work that young girls in England, and by young girls I mean anywhere from the ages of 7 up until through their teenage years, really immersed themselves in decorative needlework.
Why?
Well, if you take a step back, sewing, textiles, this was utterly essential to the lives of people in the 17th century. And all women, all girls learned sewing to a certain degree. Only some would learn to focus on such decorative needlework with such fine pieces.
Well, exactly. The level of detail that is in this particular work, that's not indicative of somebody learning their skills. That is indicative of somebody with incredible skills. So
this is a showpiece. You could think of it as a final piece, for instance, of a girl who has been, studying needleworking, has made various different types of pieces, and this is her final piece of her needlework education.
The object has got 5 distinct areas within it. If we take it as a frame, in the centre is the picture. Around the outside is, I nearly called it a tapestry. It's not a tapestry, it's embroidery. But in each of the 4 corners, there are specific aspects. What do they represent?
In each corner of the embroidery, there are something that we call a cartouche, and they are enclosed, oval-shaped spaces, absolutely jam-packed with the most wonderful array of animals, of birds, of all sorts of terrestrial and avian species. The thing about this work is if you were to first walk by it, you could very easily walk by it and not really see the amazing different universes that are in these 4 corners. Each corner represents one of the 4 elements: fire, water, earth, and air. And each cartouche allegorizes or attempts to tell the story of that element through symbols.
Gabriella, do we have any idea as to how long it would have taken to create a piece like this from the workmanship that's in it?
That I don't know. I imagine it depends on the amount of time that the young girl had to devote to it. If she was a girl of means, which this piece definitely shows that she probably was because of the materials that are used, the fine silk, the metal threads. Yes, probably she had time too to devote to it.
This is not a piece of religious piety.
No, it's not. Working from existing print sources that used allegory to interpret the world. However, it's important to say that at this time, everything that was done, whether it was decorative embroidery, a girl working with decorative embroidery at this time, it does speak to her relationship and understanding to God and the world.
This is a very feminine piece of work. In fact, it's almost exclusively feminine.
I'm not sure if it's feminine. It is the work of a girl. She is working from print sources that were originally designed by male artists. We know the names of the artists on which the allegorical representations are based. It does speak to women's identity and girls' identity and where their particular station in life. And so at this point, it speaks to that period in a girl's life when she would be studying needlework education. Does it evolve? Does it become something else as the maker becomes older? I think so, based on the fact that at a later date, a painting of Adam and Eve has been inserted to the center of the picture. We don't know who did this, but, it's possible that the maker, at a later date, as she became older, began thinking of marriage, wanted to demonstrate that she was a virtuous woman, that she was looking to display what type of wife she might be. She inserted this picture that speaks to this idea of the ideal couple. Oh, it's absolutely a piece about women, by women, that exists because of women. You're absolutely right. It was kept and most likely treasured by Phyllis Washington's children, her daughters, and their children as a piece of that sort of maternal link to Northamptonshire.
So we're certain that this item was made in Northamptonshire. And here we're getting to the Washington story in terms of its relationship to North America.
Yes, we're certain that it is an English embroidery from the 1650s. There's more work to be done to unpick exactly where it was made. I do believe that the inscription that attributes it to Phyllis Washington links it strongly to Northamptonshire, that it most likely came from Northamptonshire to colonial Virginia in the 1670s, when a woman named Martha Washington, not the future wife of George Washington, but emigrated to Virginia, following in the footsteps of her 2 older brothers, and settled in Virginia. The piece stayed there in Virginia, in the northern neck area of Virginia, from what we know, for many centuries, until it was acquired by Ruth Lee, Viscountess Leah Fareham, who was an American herself, but had married the Viscount Leah Fareham and played an instrumental role in restoring and furnishing Sulgrave Manor.
Gabriella, you're an American lady. What is your take on this piece as an American? What does it say to you?
It is a remarkable piece that embodies a story of emigration. It is a piece that was made in one country, a beloved piece taken to another country. crossing an ocean. It was kept for many, many generations, and it shows the power of what we take with us when we migrate and what it means for it to then come back to Northamptonshire so many centuries later is a wonderful linking of that narrative.
So it was, in a sense, an echo of home. That is part of the Northamptonshire story. What else do you think it says about Northamptonshire?
This item is a compelling and tangible link between people who lived and created in the 17th century in Northamptonshire, most likely the Washingtons of Stuart, Northamptonshire. It is a link that literally crossed the Atlantic Ocean, a journey that many people took under very different circumstances. And this speaks to, the founding of a colony and then ultimately the founding of a new nation. It also speaks to the amazing international efforts that happened in the early 20th century when Sulgrave Manor came to international attention and people came together and decided we need to find a way to purchase this home, to save it for the world. It speaks to international efforts to unite these stories and the power of objects to tell these wonderful journeys.
And dare I say it also was perhaps the precursor to a very important relationship that we still enjoy across the Atlantic to this stage of all our histories. And if nothing else, if you want to go to the States, go to Massachusetts, you can go and visit Northampton too. And Kettering. Gabriella, it's a fascinating story. It's a fascinating object with that physical as well as an aspirational dimension to it. Thank you for telling me about it today.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this Histories of Northamptonshire podcast. If you would like to find out more about the objects or listen to other episodes in the series, go to www.northamptonmuseums.com. Alternatively, you can visit the Northampton Museum and Art Gallery, where you can see the A History of Northamptonshire in 100 Objects exhibition for yourself. The Histories of Northamptonshire project is funded by Arts Council England as part of the National Portfolio Programme.